Hello, America. You have to understand America from Wethersfield, Connecticut, for how and why. George Washington had to come here to meet the French general right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. Wethersfield, Connecticut, north between New York and Boston. Slavery was left in the north sickly distinctly from how it was left in the south, for example, by a breaching method, a predicate acts delivery system method. I am not a lawyer. If someone wants to debate that it was a predicate acts delivery system method that caused slavery, they have to rely upon criminally foreign influence premises treatments and sequence treatments that everyone would discern. But offensively, all media platforms, all communication platforms are covering up their roles with a vertical and horizontal, database-oriented, database-connected. Completely. Everyone's connected to it. But it is maintained and exploited, and then that is exploited from off campuses. This breaching method, this predicate acts delivery system method, an archetypal criminal enterprise. I am not a lawyer, is recorded to correlation. They were entertaining slavery simultaneously without leaving out the breaching method. Simultaneously blaming it on the real, like England was involved with colonies in the north, sickly distinctly with slavery. So, in other words, their leaderships, all leaderships, are over locations, areas, and states that are in a semi-ancient trap as fact treatment nature, as defenses of quality of fact treatment nature that can't defend that and afford to have discern. What each individually grouped into species is actually capable of being discerned, because it's which is how one identity of value progressions, identity of relationship to itself, is demonstrating criminally foreign influenced human fact treatment nature. Sciences, treatments of positive and negative, increasingly away from its identity of native value progression pure. That's one of the ways. See, what is native is human. Identity of value individually grouped together. That can be positive or negative, criminal insidiousness, natures of positive, in collusion with criminal insidious natures of negative that were insidious / overt at the same time. Same way as the insidious / overt positive treatments. It's all right if people have opinions and convictions, but they are getting in the way of mandated law since founding. That means the nature of the law that really the Republic stands for, that which was revealed before internation sciences became criminally foreign influenced. They were led by that identity of value value progression, that inventions work or not in relationship to it. They are further positive or negative in relationship to it, and its relationship to itself. Increasingly. So, for example, is necessary, not just overall with things like that, but where and how interbranch was fabricating audio and video and simultaneously pretending other. That is also exploited. So we have to have mandated law followed. But we have names switching and forging interbranch. The only way they're getting away with it is because of their roles of the vertical and horizontal database, organized crime method. That is also in relationship to the people who answer phones and their sense and sensibilities, to use Jane Austen's phrase, which is critical to understand, how certain proper evidences, treatments, proper correlation treatments are prevented by interbranch individually grouped and together offensively, being and having been used remotes as weapons, as breaching screens, tools, worse, sequence shifts, When I was in high school, there were judges with passions, ones without, who speak things fake into the records, fabricating audio and video. In the background, police and their sources were in collusion fabricating audio and video because they were already criminally foreign influenced. Now these are strangers to me that I only know through confessions from strangers that have ties. Now these are dozens of people involved with Sean Dillon, Kevin Dillon, Ann Dillon. There's a Tom Dillon, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with Facebook, pages of the schools, and interbranch with them with federal crimes with various natures of courts. There's a Judge Killian who also spoke things into the record that were untrue, with a doctor that also fabricated audio and video with the Leahy family. I never had any conversation with them. Now they also have like 5 generations of their family associated with a whole bunch of people involved with Hartford Hospital with drugs, crimes, on and off the parks, on and off the field across the street from my house, through time. In relationship to this, people associated with the mayors. So it is important to understand those things not as negative. It is to force mandated law and treatments of sequence true, allowing people to, interbranch names, forging, switching, judges speaking fake things into records in collusion while they're fabricating audio, police reports with multiple police departments from different towns. As the people intercity connected on and off campuses. Now they have to highlight progression. They have methods and styles recorded. Uses of people's names. Boxing is games, one way alone. A fight. So, they want to have people have debates about overall things. They want to make names calling. Same people that are simultaneously groups that are involved with pretending to be against bullying. They're teaching, how are they going to teach the kids how to think about politics? They have premises treatments criminally foreign influenced. That's positive. Because that's easy to discern when people make opinions about slavery. That stays because the people who are, like they use two truths to lie. For example, it's true. Everyone wants to get along. It's an important thing. In life, you have to be able to make people comfortable. See, but the more and more, especially locations where there are shootings a lot, that's where we go back to that with American history. Never addressed, that's evidence. See, this is a short words that can protract, but the short words. Sequence shifts. Criminally foreign influence readings of the law. Consciously while simultaneously pretending other. Breaching, screen. So everyone is backed into a style of a shared identity where everyone was backed in. It's backed in. Every modern nation's in a semi-ancient trap. Since before modern nations' religions. It's also evidence how that is not brought in. But everyone's speaking for science anyway. They say, oh, I have a little devil in me, while they're trying to be the person speaking for it. Otherwise, just be a theater. Because our victims never heard to understand the 3 identities of theater. And they're further bond in relationship to the Trinity that is the appearance of 5. Invisible but still discernible. Distinct identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. Sequence true, finite, active, progressive identities. Where and how we are individual, grouped, and together. 3 identities of positive, distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneously. 1 identity of volume is making more and more of itself. It has in a relationship to those 5 identities of volume distinctly, non-distinctly as itself, as positive or negative. And when they are not positive simultaneously onto itself, That's what criminal insidiousness nature is. As positive and or as negative. This is where the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures were engineered to be applied against everyone. Specifically because they knew everyone would have to blame things. They would have to respond to that as fact-shaping nature. And this method knew that, and no one would know how to do that properly. So they would blame other things, others themselves. And then they would defend that. Time, reasons, everyone's victim to this sustained. Not one has trained. So that's where they have the debates offensively, so they can pretend integrity, and they can quote precedents, and they can quote statutes, which itself is evidence recorded criminally foreign influence delusions originally still. That can't defend what is their physical takes on what the law reads, and defend what the nature of the law is. See, this is about where we are nature as value / value as nature simultaneously. This is about that identity of value / value progression that is an only increasing identity of value. It's self-generating. So, it is important to discern what is recorded, crime methods of police, separating subjects. And say, well, I don't know about that, so let's talk about that. And then they fabricate more audio and video. And that means when they're investigating subjects, they're investing more and more officers of regular police forms, private, former FBI director down, involved with federal criminals before they got caught, involved pretending other people were doing their illusions, and they're involved with their kids on and off campuses, on and off the parks, on and off the corners, on and off identity ground locations in relation to the fact-shaping nature method that used them remotely. The peak points of sophistication, all, what's everything naive. Everyone blames on other things other than themselves. All we have to do is have science followed, have mandated law followed. This is an identity theft / fraud method that is sustained. Not one has trained. So the online platforms are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed victims of this. Because now they're private, going to be directed when people have problems, they fight about things or whatever like that. People don't know what was going on. So they have to rely on someone else. That whole process has involved originally and still the breaching method. Sticking things in there to keep each identity, ground, location, criminally foreign influence, self-value. And that exploited. And that engineered, blamed on other things other than themselves, and that exploited. So this is not complicated, it's just extensive. Even the courts, like there are people associated with they call it like a gang, a posse, which is what the government goes after people. Now they were involved with identity thefts and frauds, where the courts' crimes on their locations. They're also recorded painting fake sides of correlation nature. In other words, if they're going to have an issue, they're going to have a fight, and they're going to say, oh, it was about this or that. But look, everyone's saying this or that. And while they have that, where everyone's being forced to fabricate audio and video, rolls with it. So there is a Sean Dillon, who has been, they repeated the name Dillon, and they put Sean into it, and people associated with there's a Monacchio family. I never had a problem with them in my life. I barely know them. Recorded involved with this Dillon family, and with foreign and domestic families involved with the judges, with their like a DeMoro family. I can't remember something with a Della Fera family involved with judges, and a Kerr family involved with judges with the Della Fera family on Town Line Drive and with people with Central Connecticut State University, involved not just with mayors, with Washington, D.C. and World Trade Center ties. World Trade Center ties in Washington, D.C. has ties to courts throughout the states, where they have syntax nature racketeering. Originally still. They have programs with the courts that are involved with collusion with the courts have been hiding their libel aggressions per the criminally forward influence uses of the ground, per the method keeping that the outcome /S. And where it's a fact-keeping nature oriented, there's self-valuing means to keep the real causes of the overt criminal enterprises and the real furtherance of them blamed on other things other than themselves. Right there, not by accident, the means to get away with that. Even the witness protection program is involved with the same house. Many people tied to it. Involved with people associated, the stewards of the witness protection program reported involved with Joshua Julian that was pretending to know me from my school, one of the ones, on the Facebook page of the child campuses. Now he's involved with people on the child offender registry that are involved with the Wethersfield Police, the people who answer the phones for them through time, and the people who answer the phones, media locations, campuses, because of this method where everyone's speaking through other and that is being and having been exploited. They've been fabricating audio and video, intercities connected. So then when somebody has to go back and check it, no one's going to check. Everyone keeps going with the caseloads, not by accident. This is a breaching method that will sustain. What do you think it was going to cause? We could teach history in one day. They want to keep it about debatable, used to further what is not debatable, to pretend it is debatable. The sequence shift roles. Also per that which is uses of confessions. And uses of that, and in little conflicts, and then a year later, little pieces of it put together. Then they make people pretend they know their classmates. They're asking now these are doctors also involved with the courts covering up their life aggressions, as some of the private involved with them. All kind of private at once. Kept needing to hide life aggressions to the same areas, locations, uses of them that even they missed. But they did not miss their needs to hide life aggressions. Their roles with evidence racketeering, wire crimes, mail crimes. So there are men with the name Sullivan, and one who called in the last 4 months, 4 months, involved over the last 4 months with Wethersfield Police, forging and switching names, and confessions. They use that as a threat. They're how they confess to me and other about how they use officers to forge names and switch names. They say they only have one officer, McGee, but they have two that formerly took positions with that name McGee, who's involved with my new and past neighbor's house. Also with the Dillon family, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with strangers that they verified it on Facebook. Also Facebook, they've been replacing what is actually recorded for audio and video transcripts and sequence true on Facebook with fake stuff. And they've been keeping the online platforms to go against behavior as people in collusion with those that are using guns and knives and bug spray and things like that as weapons. Violence with the interbranch. Because where and how they've been using investigators, and vetting identities to hide their personal, individual, grouped, and together lives. They use like women. They never spoke for women, honestly. How they can speak for women, honestly, when they have little girls in locations like people stacking. That was breaching method employed.